of persons with disabilities in the global agenda.
No, I think for me, what I call upon the leaders, South Africa being the leader in G20, is that whenever they discuss issues, they should think about people with disabilities in the agenda, because you can't do all those things of sustainability when you have left a whole population of disabled people in Africa. And then in the whole G20, I think South Africa could lead to bring our inclusion into the program, so that once or the other time we also have a presentation of people with disabilities in that agenda. That will be the best thing they can do for us.
And finally, the chief negotiator for Hamas is reported to be meeting Egyptian and Qatari mediators in Cairo ahead of indirect talks with Israeli negotiators in Sharm el-Sheikh. They're looking to determine a date for the start of a truce. The BBC's Hugo Bashega has the story.
What is happening today is the first day of these negotiations, of the first phase of this 20-point plan that was announced by President Trump last week, and this is about the release of the remaining hostages, both living and dead, also the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails, and a withdrawal of Israeli troops from parts of Gaza. But there have been reports this morning suggesting major differences over the identities of these Palestinian prisoners to be freed, and also the scale of this Israeli withdrawal from parts of Gaza.
Recapping the top story, the Sawa protesters have again taken to the streets of cities in Madagascar for a third week of anti-government demonstrations that are now demanding President Andre Rajolina's resignation. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headline, the Confederation of African Football has announced a profit in its latest financial statements. And Robert McIntyre won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship with victory, cashing in on the huge prize money. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
It is exactly 7 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. A very good Monday afternoon to you, Africa. In our F&B slot today, we'll be looking at the factors impacting the strength of the rand, the performance of the gold, as well as South Africa's gold reserves, and the manufacturing data which comes out this week and expectations around that. And also quite an interesting story of development. We know that government in various sectors has been looking at expanding trade markets, and one such initiative has taken 30 agro-processing businesses to the Anuga International Trade Fair, which is currently underway in Cologne, Germany. We'll be speaking to the Chief Director of Export Promotion and Marketing at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zanele Sani. That and a whole lot more coming up for you on this Monday edition of Africa in Business.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
We begin here today with SA Airlink. They are in the process of procuring 10 new second-generation Embraer E2-195 jet aircraft. This in its bid to expand its airline service domestically and across the continent. It's done this through a US-based aviation leasing company called Azora, which buys first and second-hand aircraft and leases them on and or sells them on to airlines around the world. SABC senior economics reporter Nompumelelo Siziba, who was in Brazil for the formal handover of the aircraft, filed this report.
Celebrating a concluded deal, SA Airlink is procuring 10 new second-generation E2-195 jet aircraft produced by Brazilian aircraft designer and manufacturer Embraer. The two companies have a relationship dating back nearly 50 years, with SA Airlink already operating and maintaining 68 Embraer-produced aircraft in its current fleet. With the new aircraft it's procuring having a longer range, simply meaning they can travel further across the African continent, Airlink has high expansion ambitions.
Opportunities like Nigeria would be an option for us with these new aircraft in terms of the distance. Potentially looking at some of the islands that we have around the coast of Africa. So anything where we can't currently reach become opportunities. If there's sufficient demand and the market wants it, then we can have a look at those options.
Asked whether the new aircraft would enable Airlink to provide more competitive pricing to its customers, Whelan indicated that would be a factor on the agenda.
Absolutely. I think for us and for most airlines as well, the bigger the aircraft, the better the unit cost per seat. So we'll be able to definitely do some differential pricing, which we haven't had the opportunity to do so far, utilizing these new E2 aircraft.
Across the global aviation industry, airlines secure aircraft through different financing mechanisms. Azora, which is going to be leasing the 10 E2195 aircraft to Airlink, explained some of those options.
Airlines have different objectives in financing aircraft. There are many different scenarios. Some airlines choose to finance aircraft off balance sheet. They like the flexibility of a lease, an operating lease, versus having to own the aircraft and then process the aircraft out of the business and take residual value risk. So we kind of provide that flexibility. That's one reason why they might lease. Another reason why they might lease is we have particularly select delivery positions with the manufacturer. In this case, Embraer. We placed a speculative order with them where we didn't have customers. We just ordered aircraft into the future. And the airline likes our delivery position, so they're willing to lease the aircraft from us.
Meanwhile, the manufacturer of the E2195 jets, Embraer, says while Airlink is its largest customer on the African continent, it has great hopes about the continent's future and getting more of its up to 150-seater aircraft traversing the region, estimating that demand for aircraft could be around 400 over the next 2 decades.
Africa is a very exciting market for us, and we were just talking about the market forecast. So over the next 20 years in the segment up to 150 seats, we actually forecast a delivery of around 380 aircraft over those next 20 years. And we, of course, want to continue to build our segment leadership. So we'll be working very hard with the airlines in order to get a big chunk of those future deliveries. What's driving it? I think there are several factors. Africa has some of the strongest growing economies around the world. Just take Nigeria, for instance, for a market, Kenya, Ethiopia, Southern Africa. In terms of the economic growth, there's a lot of continued growth moving out into the future. The population continues to grow. It's a very young continent. Around half of the population is at an average age of 20 years. So there's an increasingly high propensity to travel. And if you combine all of those factors, plus market liberalization, better access to financing for the aircraft, which could be aircraft leasing solutions or direct financing, that's some of the drivers that we believe will ultimately lead to the demand of those new aircraft well into the future.
Gracing the ceremonial formalities was South African Ambassador to Brazil, Vusi Mafimbela. He says given the strategic relationship between South Africa and Brazil, especially through BRICS, there's much scope for partnerships with companies like Embraer, particularly in the area of defense, noting that the Defense Ministry is keen to engage with Embraer to lean on its defense technology expertise.
Brazil is a very important component in BRICS. And you know that most of the aircrafts producing countries are outside BRICS. Brazil is one of those prominent ones that are within BRICS. And BRICS is discussing the creation of an interest, a trend, a track that deals with aviation. So we need a country within BRICS that has got the capacity to actually form the fulcrum, the very base of the development of that track, aviation industry within BRICS. So the relationship is all faceted.
Including this latest aircraft, Airlink will have received 3 of the E2195s during this year, with the balance of 7 set to be delivered over 2026 and 2027. And while the continent faces economic hurdles like high debt in some countries, A number of African countries, expected to be the fastest growing in the coming years, are expected to be at the forefront of demand for more aircraft to aid in powering the goals of the African Continental Free Trade Area to unlock greater trade, movement of people, and with that, greater economic prospects. Nompemelo Siziba, SABC News, Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Amachita are through to the knockout round of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Be with us this Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. as South Africa's Under-20s face Colombia, streaming live on SABC+. And there's more. Other Under-20 World Cup matches are streaming live on SABC+, with selected fixtures on SABC Sport Channel and SABC One. Wave the flag, Mzansi. Stand up for Amachita. The FIFA Under-20 World Cup. Amachita coverage on SABC+, powered by SABC Sport.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is now exactly 15 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. Now, an African Union Commission, AUC envoy, has voiced concern over the continent's low fertilizer usage, warning it is worsening food insecurity. During a 2-day visit to Zimbabwe, Vilakazi Malindane held talks with agricultural officials on the AUC's fertilizer plant project in Harare. Only 10 African countries currently apply fertilizer at the recommended rate of 50 kilograms per hectare, a shortfall contributing to an annual food import bill of around $100 billion. John Kasim reports from Harare, Zimbabwe.
The African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Vilakazi Moses Malindane, has bemoaned the low fertilizer usage on the continent as efforts are being put in place to improve the trend and reduce food imports. Vilakazi was in Zimbabwe from Friday on a 2-day work visit, and he took the time to tour an African Center for Fertilizer Development in Harare. The second plant is in Malawi, but despite their existence, fertilizer has been very expensive, making it one of the key expenses in the agro-rural development agenda. To maximize fertilizer usage, farmers are expected to use at least 50 kgs of fertilizer per hectare against 100 to 120 in Europe. The low fertilizer usage has led to the high food import bill of $100 billion per year. However, the visit by Vilakazi may see the African Union Commission projects such as the one in Harare and Malawi being handed over to host nations or merged with other projects. Vilakazi's sentiments comes at a time when the continent is battling with fake fertilizer imports that have resulted in poor yields. To curb this challenge, the African Union Commission is fostering introduction of systems that will guarantee universal blending standards across the continent. Here's what Vilakazi said upon his arrival.
When it comes to fertilizer applications in Africa in general, there are very few countries that are able to meet the expected standards. We are still far below 50 kgs per hectare in terms of application country per country. I think there are probably less than 10 countries that have met that. Yet when we look at Europe, Europe is already applying about 100 to 120. With us in Africa, only less than 10 countries actually applying 50 kg. How are we able to compete? Because our population is increasing, it needs food, which means certain things need to be done when it comes to fertilizer.
The envoy urged member countries to be vigilant when setting fertilizer rules and standards and help reduce the influx of fake products.
But what if the fertilizer, instead of being a 232, is a 230? The farmer would obviously add that fertilizer, but not knowing that the quality standards have been compromised. I think our responsibility, therefore, is to say, if we have the blending plants, we also need to have quality parameters, particularly mainly to be independent of the blending plants, so that every fertilizer that comes is actually checked as to whether it is meeting the minimum, even the minimum standards. Because the farmers there will believe what they are told by the extension officers, because they say, it's from them, so it must be correct.
Meanwhile, Zimbabwe has welcomed the African Union Commission streamlining of its projects, as the country is already ahead regarding promoting agricultural production in rural areas. Professor Obed Jiri, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, has said,
the issues of encouraging production in every village as we embark on rural development driven by agriculture. So you will see those efforts, but fertilizer is our biggest cost in all these production aspects of agriculture. So we will be happy if the streamlining that is going to happen and the considerations that are going to happen will continue to emphasize on the Africa Center for Fertilizer Development being an African Union agent.
In Harare, Zimbabwe, for Channel Africa News, this is John Cassim.
Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Thami Ngubeni. The African Perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa. It is exactly 21 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. 30 South African agro-processing companies are showcasing their products at the Anuga International Trade Fair in Cologne, Germany, which has been running from the 4th to the 8th of October. The country's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zuko Godlimpi, says the trade fair will assist companies in exploring new export markets for their products. This is part of South Africa's export market diversification initiative. For more on this, we're joined on the line by the Chief Director of Export Promotion and Marketing at the DTIC, Zanele Asani. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for the warm welcome.
What an exciting time filled with potential for these 30 agro-processing companies that are out at the Anuga International Trade Fair. Could you tell us more, first and foremost, about the trade fair itself? What actually happens there and who attends?
Okay, no, thank you so much. Anuga is actually one of the world's leading largest food trade fairs. And it's generally regarded like as a central meeting point for the global food and beverage industry. As you mentioned, it's hosted in Germany, which is the second largest economy in the EU, but it's also the second most populous. Now, why that's interesting for us? Because it makes this an important platform which will allow us to strengthen our trade relations. And as I said, because it's a converging point, it means that buyers who actually participate or who come to Anuga are not restricted to the EU only. It's Germany, both EU far and wide, and also other countries or other buyers from other countries that have really leveraged off this fair's ability to attract the best of exhibitors, producers into their market to showcase their goods.
So there are 30 agro-processing companies from South Africa that are there under the auspices of the DTIC. Could you give us some details as to how they are maximizing their presence there, how they are positioning themselves to take advantage of the various business opportunities that are being presented to them at this trade fair?
Okay. First and foremost is obviously the obvious one, the fact that you are on site, present, meeting the buyers, showcasing. So the DTIC was able to actually support them in terms of their showcasing. So we provide, the space under a national pavilion. So you fly under the South African flag, which then has appeal in terms of our unique products. For instance, we have companies like Rooibos, which are unique to South Africa. So showcasing under the South African flag actually provides you a particular particular advantage. So outside of showcasing how they're also making themselves, top of mind to different buyers, we actually had an extensive preparation session with the exhibitors that we are supporting. And I'd really like to highlight our support that we receive from our international partners, particularly GIZ and SIPO. What they do is that they provide us with consultants who are familiar with the market. So they are then able to sort of do hand holding for our exporters to say, this is how you navigate the market. This is how you package your product. This is what makes this product appeal to client A. So we go through quite an extensive sessions with our exhibitors, with the partners that we have through the Swiss partnership and also through the German partnership, that then makes their ability to showcase even then secure buyers. So I think that's a unique feature that we have with the Anuga show as the DTIC, our partnerships with the international trade partners.
You mentioned that one of the companies that's being featured is the company that provides rooibos. Could you tell us more about the other 29?
Yes, they're in various. I think what we've done with the companies that are showcasing there is really maximize what South Africa's capabilities are. So I've just mentioned the rooibos because that's unique to South Africa. We have companies that are providing sauces and canned vegetables. So companies like Dursots, which are very famous in South Africa. We've also got companies that are providing uniquely blended chili oil. That is companies coming from Stellenbosch that are showcasing. We've got companies as well that are providing assorted jams, honeybush tea as well. We've got biscuits. So anything that is food related. I think also uniquely South African is the abalone. So we've also not supported just the companies, but we've got the export councils, which represent a number of companies that are in that sector. So when one company would not be able to go, our export councils, which are also partially supported by the DTIC, are able to represent a number of those. So we've got the Fruit and Vegetable Canners Export Council representing companies in that sector. And we've also got the Abalone Export Council, which obviously then supports companies and producers, harvesters of abalone in South Africa, showcasing there amongst many of the 30.
I mean, some really interesting products that you actually have exhibiting there in Anuga. Now, these companies are there, as you mentioned, Zanele, through the Export and Marketing and Investment Assistance Scheme. Could you tell us more about the scheme and after this particular exhibition, how you'll be assisting these companies to enter into new markets?
Okay. No, thank you. In short, I think you've spelled out the acronym. It's called the EMEA Incentive Scheme. Basically, what that scheme aims to do is to partially compensate the exporters and manufacturers for costs that they would have incurred in actually entering that market. So in this particular instance, as I first mentioned, we would then defray some of the costs that would go with actually exhibiting. So the space and the marketing that goes with that would be partially funded by the DTIC. Their travel expenses, the accommodation and flights, that would also be partially funded by the DTIC, depending obviously on the level of the company. The more of a new entrant you are, the more support you provide. The more of a seasoned exporter you are, the less support you receive in terms of that financial incentive from the DTIC. So that's how it would work. But I think post the Anuga show, as you say, we participate in a number of other exhibitions. So Anuga is particularly aimed at the European market, which, as I mentioned, other buyers from other regions come. But if we are looking at the food sector, one of the ones that we are planning for the next year, 2026, that would be supporting agro-processing companies also to participate in Gulf food, which takes place in the UAE. There you have a similar type of composition where we are also showcasing South Africa's agro-processing capability. But we are really not limited to agro-processing. We support a wide range of sectors across different product categories. I think what is Ed mentioned is obviously the agro-processing. So we continue with the exhibitions, as I mentioned, but for some specific markets, we would support them in something that is called a trade mission, where you are not necessarily showcasing at a trade fair, but we have specific interventions that we undertake where we organize for you to meet with potential importers and distributors in that market. And really those are tailored where we do a lot of matchings, and we do, like sector-specific regulations, understanding the regulations in that market, understanding what certification. So that is more in-depth and more intimate because it's not as widespread as a trade fair would be, but it caters for specific needs in that market.
And it really,
and it allows.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds that you're catering for different, businesses at different points of growth. But we thank you so much for putting us in the know this afternoon, and all the best for the rest of the Anuga International Trade Fair.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Zanele. That's Zanele Sane. She's the Chief Director of Export Promotion and Marketing at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition in South Africa. She takes us to exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African time as we make our way now to the markets desk, where Thabiso Lehoko is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. It's Nosipho Zuma this afternoon. In your financial indicators this hour, one US dollar is trading at 17 Rand 22 in South Africa, and Botswana is trading at 13 Pula 205, and Namibia it is trading at 17 Namibian dollars 218. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23 kwacha 78 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 49. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 144 birr 35. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shilling 440. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shilling 454. One US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 470. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 47 Egyptian pounds 72. In Tunisia, it is trading at 2 dinar 897. In Algeria, it is trading at 128 dinar 536. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 10. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,500 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,942 and platinum at $1,611 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $65.59 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And for the latest from the business of sport, here is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Thami. We begin with football news in our business of sport. The Confederation of African Football, CAF, has announced a profit in its latest financial statement, saying it has reversed several years of deficits. CAF reported a net profit of $9.48 million for the 2023-2024 financial year at its General Assembly today, citing a strong increase in commercial revenues, the addition of new sponsors, and implementation of strict financial controls. CAF reported revenues of $166.42 million and said its expenditure priorities will be increasing prize money for its competitions to $81 million tournament organizations to $19 million, with $35 million for football development and $21 million for governance and administration. The organization's president, Patrice Motsepe, told delegates that they were close to concluding negotiations on a long-term marketing and television deal worth $1 billion. And the new Peter Mokaba Stadium in South Africa's Limpopo province will host the final two Lesotho FIFA World Cup qualifier matches on the 10th and the 13th of October 2025. Lesotho will face off against Nigeria on Friday, followed by Zimbabwe on Monday next week. The new Peter Mokaba Stadium hosted some 2010 FIFA World Cup and other soccer Premier League matches. Polokwane Municipality spokesperson Tipa Silala says these games are set to propel the city onto the global sporting stage. Small business owners in Polokwane are optimistic that the upcoming qualifying matches will boost their finances.
We are already seeing the benefits of these international games. As I was talking to our tourism guys within the municipality, they said since we announced that we are hosting the two matches, Zimbabwe, Lesotho and also Nigeria, our hospitality sector has seen increase in terms of bookings around the 10th and the 13th. That's the days of the two games. So it's really contributing a lot to the tourism sector, is contributing a lot to the city's economy.
The 2025 WTA China Open singles final promises a high-stakes showdown both on and off the court. The champion Amanda Anisimova claims prize money of $1.124,380, while the runner-up is set to take home $597,890. These confirmed figures are highlighting the lucrative rewards that come with reaching the pinnacle of one of the sport's most prestigious tournaments. Yet, the glory comes with its complexities. China levies taxes on foreign athletes' earnings from events held within its borders, with rates influenced by nationality and tax treaties. Some competitors have faced taxes as high as 45%, as seen at the Chengdu Open. Golf news, Robert McIntyre won the Alfred Daniel Links Championship with victory, cashing in on the huge prize money. The winning champion, McIntyre, has pocketed $814,000 with number 2 title hunting, $462,000 third place. John Perry winning $462,000 equal to Richard Staney. McIntyre became the first Scot to win at home of golf in 20 years in what proved to be a special week for the home favourite. We will end with Rafael Ngarambe, who has been re-elected to lead the Rwanda Volleyball Federation for a second term as president until 2029. The Rwanda Volleyball Federation secures funding through partnerships with various organizations and potentially international governing bodies like the FIVB. Recent news shows partners like UCLA have committed funds, and new proposal such as increased prize money for FRVB itself aim to boost the sport's finances. The FRVB president has proposed increasing prize money for league champions to enhance motivation and competition, with potential increases from $1,300 to $7,000. Partnership development. The Federation continues to pursue new partnerships, such as the one with EUCL, which committed $3,400 annually for 3 years to promote volleyball. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
It is exactly 4:38 Central African time as we turn our sights now to Uganda, where the strike by the Uganda National Teachers Union UNATU has entered its fourth week. This as the government issued a stern ultimatum for teachers to return to work by October the 2nd or face dismissal. The teachers downed tools on the 15th of September And this was over salary increments and unfulfilled government pledges, they say. UNATU's General Secretary of Philbert Bakuma has dismissed the ultimatum by the government as extreme, inflammatory and unlawful. Joining us this afternoon to unpack this further for us is Philbert Bakuma, General Secretary of the Uganda National Teachers Union. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Good to be talking to you this afternoon. We really would like to get an understanding of the situation on the ground. Take us through the demands that you as UNATU have, and on the flip side of that, what government is offering in contrast.
Yes, we have been having a long-standing issue about salary enhancement with the government. And this dates back in 2018 when we sat as public service union and signed a collective bargaining agreement. This was supposed to run for 5 years and it was ending in 2023. In 2022, government from nowhere increased for a section of teachers by over 300%, leaving the rest without a single coin. And when we raised the issue, we were promised that this was being implemented in a phased manner, and therefore we should wait. We have been waiting for the last 3 years, and nothing is forthcoming. So on 15th September, we laid down our tools and we are demanding that government should increase salaries of other categories of teachers by the same percentage after the 3 years. And that is where we are. Although we are receiving intimidations from government, we are not bothered by the intimidation because the law does not support intimidation, harassment, and threatening during a legally constituted industrial action.
And on
so
that
the
note,
teachers remain at home.
So the
Yes.
teachers do remain at home. So on that note, Philbert, how do you intend to respond to the government's ultimatum? Yes, you're saying the teachers are at home right now. Is this going to be an indefinite strike? Is there an end in sight? And also, what are the measures that you've put in place to protect the teachers from any sort of reprisals which might ensue because of their participation in the strike?
First of all, we met government side on 16th of September, and we gave them our side. They have given us an invitation for Wednesday 8th. We shall go there. But what we want is an answer and not intimidation and threat. Those make the bad situation worse.
And what type of answer are you anticipating to get from government? Have you had any sort of deliberations, discussions, negotiations with them that can point to a possible outcome?
They were indicating that they want to go and look for 25%, a position we objected, because in 2022, His Excellency the President categorically indicated that he does not want to enhance salaries in piecemeal. That once he gets the category, he must pay them full amount. So after 3 years, you cannot come back and go to square zero and start bringing 25 when you paid 300% at a go.
All right, Philbert Bakuma, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Thank you for that update on the teachers' strike that has now entered its 4th week. And from all intents and purposes, it is a strike that will continue. Thank you very much, Philbert Bakuma.
You're welcome, madam.
Thank you, sir. He is the General Secretary of the Uganda National Teachers Union. He takes us to exactly 4:43 Central African Time.
Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Thami Ngubeni. The African Perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa. It's all systems go for the 24th COMESA Summit of Heads of State and Government, which begins this Monday at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi, Kenya. The 4-day summit, taking place under the theme Leveraging Digitization to Deepen Regional Value Chains for Sustainable and Inclusive Growth, will be bringing together leaders, ministers, as well as business stakeholders from 21 member states. Kenya is set to assume the rotating chairmanship of COMESA from Burundi and has reaffirmed its commitment to delivering a successful summit, underscoring the country's central role in advancing regional integration, trade and inclusive economic growth across the African continent. For more on this, we're joined this afternoon by the regional finance and economic analyst Bernard Owanji in Cameroon. A very good afternoon to you, Bernard. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. My name is Bernard Owanji Bernard. I used to be a senior economist with United Nations Development Program stationed in Burundi, Kenya, and Angola. So I know some of the business of COMESA.
Oh, and that's why you're here, because you are just the right person to be speaking to. So let's focus on this year's COMESA Summit. It does come at a time when Africa is intensifying its efforts towards deeper regional integration. It's been a focus of the continent for a while. And with Kenya now at the helm, what exactly does this mean for Kenya? And perhaps in a broader perspective, what does it mean for the bloc's strategic direction?
When Kenya is hosting the summit this year, for Kenya, it's very good. You know, it's a diplomatic sunset. But beyond that, I see very little progress in the COMESA business as a whole.
And what do you see the significance of this for Kenya itself? And what does Kenya have to bring to the table?
Well, you know, for the past 20 or 30 years, we have been looking at COMESA as a body that could foster regional integration in that part of Africa. But we have yet to see tangible results, you know, stemming from that cooperation, whether it be in terms of common governance policies, or whether it be in terms of common infrastructure projects, or whether it be a common position on diplomatic issues. On all of the issues that come up on the international scene, you see different countries of COMESA that take different positions.
So the COMESA countries have been exploring ways to boost cross-border trade and align themselves with the African Continental Free Trade Area. And this in a region with overlapping memberships. There's COMESA, there's SADC, there's EAC. What are the prospects for greater coordination under the tripartite free trade area framework? And how are these frameworks expected to complement each other? And also, if you could maybe just touch on your previous answer as well, you know, where are the blockages where, you know, policy seems to be in place, agreements seem to be in place, but not much as far as implementation or tangible results?
Well, originally, COMESA was a body with of a much smaller size than it is today. Today, they have 21 countries, which is nearly half the size of the African Union itself, going from Tunisia, Libya, down to Southern Africa. And it is very difficult to coordinate 21 different countries that do not have a common resource, that do not have common governance standards. You have some of the countries that are democratic, like Kenya, like Tanzania, is that we like. And then you have some of them that are under military rule, and some of them that are purely autocratic system. So it's very difficult to coordinate policies with states that do not have a common ground of understanding how to manage the internal affairs and how to approach international affairs. It's very difficult to coordinate.
So that's on the area of trade. Let's look at the area of peace and security. That's also on the agenda for this 20th meeting of Ministers of Foreign Affairs. How, in your view, does COMESA's peace agenda support trade and economic development?
Well, when I was in Burundi, COMESA in 2000, the year 1999 to 2000, COMESA was a big, very important player during the Burundi conflict. So in terms of diplomatic efforts, they played a significant role. But yet, we try to say that COMESA adopt a common project for infrastructure because, Burundi is a landlocked country like Rwanda, and then we are able to bring COMESA to commit on a common project to bring so that you could have a road link or a railroad link that could connect Burundi to the Indian Oceans. You see, so you do not have a concrete project on hand, which will have a demonstrative effect, on the coordination of policies among COMESA countries. And then you have another recent example. The original members of COMESA included Egypt and Ethiopia. But during the past few years, Ethiopia has managed to build a dam, a very important dam that was commissioned months ago, without the consent of Egypt or without coming to a common ground, with countries like Sudan or Egypt, that depend on the same river on which the dam is built. So I see that, it's difficult, in COMESA to achieve the stated objective of regional integration, whether it be the free movement of people and persons, or whether it be common infrastructure, whether it be transborder infrastructure project. It's very, very difficult to see any achievement that was performed by COMESA as a body.
Bernard Wanji, thank you so much for your insight this afternoon as we look at the relevance of COMESA and what it hopes to achieve at this 24th COMESA Summit. Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. That's pleasure's all ours. That's Bernard Wanji in Cameroon. He is a regional finance and economic analyst. He takes us to exactly 4:51.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Thami Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
So in this week's FNB slot, we're zooming into South Africa, looking at the country's currency strength and what may be behind this boost. We'll also look at this week's manufacturing data. It's due to come out a bit later on this week. And joining us for this is FNB senior economist Koketso Mano. Welcome, Koketso. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Thami.
So let's first turn our focus to the strength of the rand. What are the factors that seem to be boosting the currency?
Well, there's a few, but number one would be a weaker dollar. So that's mainly the story that is being told. So if you look at the uncertainty in that area, so with the government shutdown, the impact that the tariffs are anticipated to have. But at the same time, there's definitely some weakness that is building up in the labor market in the United States. So I think, with the expectation that the Fed will continue to cut interest rates at the 2 remaining meetings this year, has really weighed on the dollar, and we're seeing that, boosting emerging market currencies. The rand here is what we're talking about. But there are other factors as well. I mean, with this global uncertainty, what we're seeing is that there's a search for safe haven, right? And maybe if the dollar is not providing that, or the United States is not providing that at the moment, we're seeing this flush into gold. So gold prices have also been quite resilient, reaching really high levels, and we're also starting to see other precious metals also rising, prices also rising. So I think from a terms of trade perspective, that has really been supportive to the rand. Thami, at the other side of this equation is oil prices. So we've seen oil prices remaining soft. We've seen OPEC, the oil producing cartel, increasing production. So that is expected to add to a growing supply surplus, in the global market. So with weak oil prices, which is something that we import, and then the stuff that we export, gold and precious metals, being on the high side, that has really been supportive to our terms of trade and supportive to the rand. The last measure here, Thami, would be, investor interest into South Africa. And we're mainly seeing that in the bond space. So with that interest in investing in local bonds, we've also started to see that supporting the rand as well. So these are the different matrices that are driving the resilience of the rand at the moment.
And what impact is this going to have on South Africa's reserves? I mean, you spoke about gold hitting the new highs as one of the factors impacting the rand's strength. How then does that impact South Africa's reserves?
Yes, so we've seen a positive impact on South Africa's reserves. So if you look at, our gold and foreign exchange reserves that are the data that is produced by the Reserve Bank, you will see how, our reserves on a gross position has been increasing, supported mainly by gold prices. So we expect that to continue as long as gold prices hold up the way that they have been. So we should see a positive data coming out on that front.
And talking about data, we are looking forward to the manufacturing data coming up this week. Or what are your expectations?
Yeah, so manufacturing is an interesting sector at the moment. Unfortunately, we've seen quite a bit of volatility there. So what you tend to look at, Thami, as a leading indicator is the Purchasing Managers Index. So that will give you some indications of what might be happening in the manufacturing space. So when you look at the PMI, you will also see that volatility coming through quite strongly, right? In fact, the September number, which is the latest that we have, did move back into positive territory, but it's only the second time this year that we've seen the PMI in that positive territory to above 50 index points. But going back to the mining data, so manufacturing data. So manufacturing, we're expecting the August number. And in August, the PMI actually was in negative territory. So that really still speaks to a subdued environment for manufacturing. Thami, I also have to say that we're worried about, imports that could be coming in quite strongly from, cheaper products from Asian markets. So that could be something that also weighs on local manufacturing. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And then obviously there are those longer-term structural constraints such as logistics that to be weighing on the sector. But rather than anything, the cyclical environment is also not supportive. If you think about how tepid the global environment is, and also how local demand is improving, but it is coming from a really subdued area. So I think manufacturing in general this year could be relatively weak, as opposed to mining that has now recently received that boost from your higher commodity prices. So I think that's what we can expect to see from the productive sectors of the economy. It's only leading indicators that we have so far, so we'll have to see what the data actually looks like. But right. I think, Thami, when we think about the trends, this is something that we're worried about.
Koketso Mano, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking through an overview of what your economic desk is looking like.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's Koketso Mano. She's senior economist at FNB. And with that, we wrap up Africa in Business for this Monday afternoon and make way for the French desk. A very good afternoon to you, Miss Vue d'Afrique, Joël.
Merci. Bonjour, Thami. Bonjour à tous les éditeurs de Channel Africa sur Vue d'Afrique. Tout à l'heure, il sera question de la Côte d'Ivoire. Charles Blé Goudé se rallie à Simone Gbagbo et nous parlerons du Cameroun, dernière semaine de campagne électorale, mais aussi de l'opposition tchadienne vent debout contre la l'adoption d'une révision constitutionnelle. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci à tous de rester connectés. Merci Thami.
Merci beaucoup, and indeed, restez connectés. And merci beaucoup to our entire team, our producer Mabubulok, our technical producer Mr. Lutuli, and on social media we've got Talent Butelezi. Takes us to exactly 2 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. See you again, same time, same place tomorrow for more Africa in Business. I'm Thami Ngubeni, and this is Channel Africa.